Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you again. Hope you're doing well. We're looking into February already. Wow, February. This is going by fast. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for making time for the podcast. And I want to talk today about community building around your show. I'm finding that we have so many podcasts about podcasting that talk about microphones and hosting sites and technology and RSS feeds and blah, 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 blah. And it's just a bunch of people saying the same thing. And I'm like, well, okay, what's different in the podcasting space that we need to talk about more? And I think it's more around community building and being in touch with your audience. I am actually going to be doing something with Podmatch with their Podcasting Made Simple and their Podmatch events that they do quarterly. I've been invited, and I'm so grateful and honored that I can be a part of the amazing voices that have been a part of Podmatch in the past. So that's coming up in the future, and I'm proud to share that with you when it's available. But I've been really focused on that topic for that audience and for you around the idea of building community around your podcast, and the fact that as podcasters, we need to have some way to have our audience identify themselves as a listener, communicate with you as a host, but then also communicate with each other as fellow listeners. And there are many different ways to do this. I've tried a few that have worked. I've tried a few that have failed. And I'll share with you some of the ideas that I have and maybe give you some suggestions on what you should do early on in your journey as a podcaster, even with 5-10 listens to your show, what you can do today to start building up that community of amazing listeners, which over the period of time will continue to grow and multiply because you're doing it right from the beginning. So thanks for being here. And if you're part of my community already, you're going to hear some of what I'm doing behind the scenes to cultivate my relationship with you. And if this is your first time here and you've never heard an episode of the How to Podcast series, what makes this show different? It's not one single voice telling you how you should podcast. There are no rules on this show. You'll never hear me saying, here is a rule you must follow. Here is my rule for promoting your show. Here's my rule for the name of your show. There are no rules in podcasting. If you hear anybody with a show about podcasting that gives you a rule, you need to hit stop immediately, because a rule is a gatekeeper, and podcasting has no gatekeepers. You can do anything you want. So please, if you hear anyone in podcasting telling you there's a rule that you must follow to be a podcaster, you're in the wrong space. Just so you know, there are no rules here. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. Thanks for pressing play. When we talk about building a strong community around your podcast, I want you to understand that a community is crucial to the success and the longevity of your show. Having a community built around what you do as a podcaster will keep you podcasting. It's not about self-motivation. It's not about discipline. It's not about organization. It's about understanding that there's someone actually listening to what you're putting out into the world, and that these people find value in what you have to say. They also find value in the companionship of knowing that you're going to be there on a regular basis for them to listen to, interact with as a listener. There's a bond that happens between a listener and a podcaster over a period of time. And if you continue to be there for them in a predictable fashion, you're going to build a lasting relationship, even though many of the times you'll never actually speak one-on-one with your listener. It's that constant being in their world where they start to build you into their routine. That's a great thing. When I hear somebody tell me that they listen to my show in this environment or in this context in this way, and that they've kind of melded me into what they do during the week, and I'm now part of their routine, that's such a rewarding thing to hear, to know that not only do they listen to the show, but they actually have, it's melted into their life, and it becomes part of what they do. It's incredible. So that's my wish for you in 2025. If you don't have any episodes or you've been doing this forever, that you get to the point where people start to put you into their routine, that's a very great place to be and a super amazing foundation to build on. That should be your goal in 2025, to become somebody's regular routine. But the idea of community now is the idea of then, how can we build something on that foundation of people having us as a part of their routine? Community creates a sense of belonging, and community creates a sense of loyalty, where your show is their show and where you become their person. That is the best thing. Again, we talk about competition in podcasting and that there really isn't any, but technically there is, in the fact that people only have so many hours per week to listen, so many hours per day to listen. So they have to make a choice between your show and television, radio, video games, family, work, sleep, or other podcasts that they love. So you are in competition with all of those things at any given moment. And for somebody to make you part of the routine, that's a big step. That's a big commitment. You're no longer seeing each other. You're full on in a relationship at that point. So the power of audience self-identification. Kevin Palmieri was on my show a while back, and he does Podcast Growth University and Next Level University. Great. Kevin's an amazing guy. Really enjoyed having him on the show. Definitely go check him out. And Kevin talks a lot about having your audience self-identify. And I love that he brought this up, and I've been using this with other people as well, giving credit to Kevin for introducing that concept to me. It's just that we need some way for our audience to put their hand up and say, I listen to your show. And we need to create some kind of atmosphere where that's encouraged and easy to do. Because if it's not easy to do and it's not encouraged, it's never going to happen. That whole line about you do not have because you do not ask. If you don't ask your audience to put their hand up and say, hey, I listen to your show, whether that's through reviews, through comments, through speak pipes, through buy me a coffees, through Zoom meetings, one-on-ones in your calendar, if you don't give them a way to actually do the thing you're asking them to do, they're not going to do it because it's too difficult. When listeners self-identify as part of your podcast community, it creates a sense of belonging and loyalty, and this has several benefits for you and your podcast. The first is increased engagement. Listeners who feel part of a community are more likely to interact with your content on a more regular basis. As well, word of mouth promotion engages listeners are more likely to share your podcast with others, expanding your reach. And it doesn't cost you a penny to have this happen. Your audience becomes your evangelist and go out into the world and tells people about you, and you're not even there. And they sing your praises. They send people to your website. They recommend an episode to their friends. Word of mouth promotion is an amazing tool for people to self-identify as a listener of your show. As well, stronger relationships with your audience in a social context is really amazing as well. Listeners form strong connections with the hosts and feel part of what's happening in the podcast from a community perspective. And it leads to higher retention rates because people who are in community with you are not typically the listener who listens to the first 1 or 2 minutes of a 45-minute episode and then they leave. The people who are in community with you and you are a soothing, comforting, regular voice in their world, they tend to listen longer. So if you're looking at retention rates, which means in Apple and Spotify, you can look episode by episode and see the drop-off points where people bounce from your episode and leave, you can see how long people listen to your episode. You want to make that retention rate all the way to the end if possible. That's the goal. And if you're only getting 10, 20% of the beginning of your episode being listened to and then nobody hears the end, it's a little disappointing. It's hard to build something firm and strong if your audience isn't engaged with the content. So your relationship with your listeners, when I hear people talk about growing their audience and how do I grow my show, I really struggle with that question because it's so open-ended. Growth by what means? What are you talking about? For me, I love to grow my show by not just attracting a whole bunch of people that I'll never hear from who listen to the first 1 minute of my episode, which counts as a listen. Great. I would much rather have fewer people come to my show and be passive than I would much rather have more people come to my show and self-identify and be actively involved in what happens here and be part of the conversation. That's my metric in 2025 is I'm not here to get 100,000 downloads. I'm not here to be a top 1% podcast. I'm not here to be one of the top 100s in my category. I'm here to build a relationship with you. All of those other metrics are just something that once I get to that level, I get 100,000 listens, I'm going to want 200,000 listens. It's a never-ending cycle of going to the next level and at the same time ignoring my audience. I'm not here for the vanity metrics. Yes, I look at my stats. Yes, I know who's listening and where you are in the world, but do I find value in the fact that one episode has 20 listens and one episode has 150? Like, really? Does that keep me up at night? No. What keeps me up at night is when somebody sends me a message, how quickly can I respond? How quickly can we be in community? And how soon can I have you on my screen? Because I would love to meet you. That's my metric for success in 2025. And if there's only 5 people that I get to interact with this year, but we build a strong relationship and a meaningful connection where I'm thinking about you when I'm not talking about you, that's much better than an avatar. Some made-up creature that may or may not listen to my show. I'd much rather know that I'm talking to Bill Monty, or I'm talking to Dave Beckmeyer, or Sharon, or I know you by name, and that's the joy of podcasting for me, more than a random arbitrary number that may or may not be accurate, and I'd much rather know it's just you. The power of your audience self-identifying is something that I want you to tap into in 2025. And there's many different ways to do this. We're going to cover it here in the episode, but I just think there's got to be a way, first of all, as a base level for our conversation today, is how are you going to create an atmosphere where your audience has the ability to easily self-identify? And have you actually asked them to self-identify? Do they know that you want them to do that? Again, you do not have if you do not ask. There's another part to all of this that I find really doesn't get talked about a lot in podcasting, especially podcasts about podcasting, but when everybody just talks about what kind of microphone you have and how boring is that. It's the idea of the benefit of a feedback loop. So what is a feedback loop? By implementing a feedback loop in your podcast strategy can significantly enhance your show's quality and audience satisfaction. Feedback loops are basically you putting out something and your audience responds and you respond to your audience and back and forth and back and forth. The conversation continues from there. It's not so one-sided. Podcasting is really a monologue sent out into the world and we hope somebody listens. But when you can go from monologue, single, mono, one voice, to dialogue, more than one voice, then that's where the magic happens in podcasting. To get beyond recording into your computer, staring at the wall, to an engaged communication through social media, through email, through voice messages, buy me a coffee, again, on and on and on. Getting that FaceTime with your audience, that's the benefit of a feedback loop. That is fire. That is fuel for your podcast to continue going. When all of your self-discipline is gone, when all of your motivation to do what you need to do today because you just don't feel it, when those emails come in and those voice messages come in and that buy me a coffee donation shows up at your door, you're like, that's why I'm doing this. So there's 4 things here under feedback loops that I want you to think about that all kind of fit in under this category. And I'm curious how many of these you're leveraging in your show. The first is continuous improvement. Audience feedback will help you as a podcaster identify areas of enhancement and improvement in your content, in your delivery, in your podcast as a whole. This continuous improvement process, getting feedback on your show, asking for opinions and feedback, is a great way. Surveying your audience, a great way for you to learn more about what you are doing well and how you can do better as a podcaster to reach your core audience for your show. You as a podcaster continually need to be improving your show. Do not put your car on autopilot or whatever they call it in a Tesla, where the car drives itself. No, you need to be in control of your show, and you need to have a destination in mind so that you're heading towards a specific direction in where you want to go with your show. And you're always getting better. Every episode, one episode at a time, you're improving your presentation. You're not so slow. You're not so fast. You're more thoughtful. You ask better questions. You tighten up on some of the fluff that just doesn't seem to add value to the show. Something better every single time to benefit your audience. Continuously improve your show. Another benefit of feedback loops, enhancing the trust between you and your community. I want you to be actively seeking and responding to feedback in 2025 for your show. Why? Because this builds trust, both between you and the audience and you as the host. Always be seeking and responding to feedback, asking questions of your audience, listening for responses. Remember, a small, very small section of your audience will ever respond to anything that you put in front of them. And you want to grow that number over time. Just like we want to grow our podcast and be better at podcasting, we also want to grow and be better at our engagement with our audience. So if 1, 2, 3% of your audience responds to anything that you do, which is kind of the norm in podcasting, then maybe try to grow that number by how you do it, by how frequently you do it, and by giving examples about how you do it. By doing this, it's going to encourage other people who see you doing this in real time for others. They're going to want to be in on that as well, and it'll increase the engagement for your podcast. And be consistent with that. Enhance the trust that your podcast listeners have with you and that you have with your audience. And then the other part we can do under feedback loops is all around audience-driven content. I love when I get a recommendation for an episode idea for my show from you as you listen. You're like, I've noticed, Dave, you don't talk about A, B, and C much. Could you cover these topics? Because that's really interesting to me as a listener, and I like to get your take on it. I know what other people say about this certain topic, but I know you don't talk about it often, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, that's great. That's exactly what I like doing. I had somebody reach out and they said, Dave, can you talk about imposter syndrome? So in January, I did that 4-episode series, a little mini series on imposter syndrome. If you haven't heard it, I'd love for you to go back and check it out. Just scroll on your phone and you'll see that near the beginning of January. So that came from an idea from a listener. Can you cover this topic because I'm really struggling and I'd like to get your thoughts? So when your audience reaches out to you, again, because you made it easy to do so, then you can start building on content that they're requesting for you to do. Instead of staring at a blank piece of paper or a blinking cursor on your screen going, what am I going to talk about this week? Encourage your audience to be the source of content ideas for your show. And you need to make it easy for them to be able to do that through, again, SpeakPipe, Buy Me a Coffees, email, calendar invites where people can jump in and talk to you in person. Like, you need to make it so simple and easy for people to connect with you that it's It's not a big lift for them to go, okay, I got an idea. I'm going to reach out to fill in a name blank podcaster. I'm going to reach out and suggest my idea for the show. Again, you do not have because you do not ask. So ask your audience for ideas on what they want you to talk about. It might really help you to unlock and unblock your creativity when you get stuck and you're not sure what to talk about next. You don't have to come up with everything. Your audience, they're smart and they're there for a reason. They know, like, and trust you. They love you. And the idea that you would give them the opportunity to suggest topics, you got to know that you take a suggestion from your audience, give credit to the person who gave you the idea. Come on. They're going to love you for that. And you're going to get more ideas. Let your audience help drive the content in your show. And then the last part of this is all around crisis management. It's an opportunity for that feedback loop to come into play. In challenging times, feedback loops provide real-time insights into audience sentiment and needs. We need to be able to create this safe place for people when things are going wrong or people are looking for your comforting words and support for something that's going on in our world. Happens often. They're looking to you to give some perspective from your side. Again, you're a trusted voice in their world. Way more than media, way more than radio. You're a trusted voice because they feel like they know you in a way they don't know anyone else in a creative media space. So leverage that. Leverage the idea that you can be a source of reason, a source of comfort, a source to give them the ability to connect with someone. It's very important. The last part around feedback loops that I kind of want to focus on today and give you an example from what we're doing on the How to Podcast series is all around creating safe and interactive spaces. So people have self-identified. You have a feedback loop in place now. The next logical step is to not only talk to your listeners individually and to have this communication happening between you and the listener and you as the host. You also need to create some way for your audience to connect to each other as fellow listeners in community around your show. Now, I've tried a Facebook group and it failed. A, because I didn't give it enough time and attention. B, people would join and then never do anything as far as interact, speak, post. There was no reason to because there was no discussion happening and new people would come into the Facebook group and it'd be completely dormant. It's like, well, why am I here? What's the point of this? So I've just abandoned all of those Facebook groups. Now, you might love a Facebook group and that's great. It might work really well for you. It's like having another job. It's a full-time gig to be the host of the room and then have to facilitate the conversation, get the conversation rolling. Sometimes I was posting to myself, asking myself questions in my own group and nobody else was responding. The part of the problem is Facebook only shows your content to a very small percentage of your audience. So they don't even know you're talking in the group because Facebook wants you to pay money for your post to be shown. That's a business. That's how it works. So I don't like that model. I don't like paying Facebook to talk to the people who have self-identified as listeners of the show. I don't want to pay Facebook to show them my content. It's ridiculous. So Facebook don't work for me. I'm in some groups and I really do enjoy the conversation. They're really run well, but they've been there for a long time. They have a larger group of people, some more active people, and there's a lot of people who will never talk in the group. They just sign up for whatever reason, but they don't contribute and you just kind of take up space. So for me, Facebook groups have not been a big thing. I've tried Mighty Networks. That failed. Only had one person signed up for that. I've tried multiple different platforms for the How to Podcast series and my other 7 shows. Not very successful until I stumbled into the world of meetups. Now, meetups were really popular during the global event and where everybody was at home and we were hungry for interaction with a fellow human being without having to wear a mask and do things online. And we could jump into a Zoom room and meet people from around the world. It was great. And then it just kind of faded away because everything kind of went back to semi-normal and people didn't need it as much. And there was like this vacuum that happened where people left online meetups and things and went out in person, which is great. But what happens there is there's geography to deal with. There's conventions for podcasting, big events, but they're always held, and for us in Canada, they're always held down in the US, all the big ones. And for us to get there is expensive, timely. We only have so many days off from our job to travel. Our partner who comes with us has zero interest in podcasting, so it's a complete snore fest for them to attend these events. So it's really difficult for many of us to go to these events. If you live close to them, great, awesome, take advantage. You're lucky to have that availability. But as a Canadian, we have a couple here in Toronto that I could go to. They're usually held during the day, which I can't get to because I work nights. So for me personally, it doesn't work. And then we have Pod Summit in Calgary, which I went to in 2024. Hope to go back 2025. That's a Canadian event. But again, it's $5,000 all in to get out there, stay, go to the event, and get back home. It's a big commitment to sign up for. So I find that a virtual free meetup, free for you, it costs me money, but a free meetup where you can meet other people becomes one of the best ways, most economical ways for people to meet each other, have conversation, build relationships, and do it from the convenience of your home. That's the one thing that I see as an advantage for my show, for this podcast. Meetups have been way more successful than any Facebook group or any off-platform thing that I've tried to date. I'm curious what works for you and for your show. Let me know at howtopodcast.ca. If you create a community for your podcast, for your listeners to get together and talk to each other, there's one key thing that you need to create. It needs to be a safe and interactive space for anybody who comes into your room and into this group. It has to be safe and it has to be interactive. And that's what I want to cover today. And I've got a few voice messages for you that I'll sprinkle in here from members of our meetup group who have kindly left messages around what they are experiencing in our meetup. And I wanted you to hear from them. But how do we create this safe and interactive space? I've got 5 things to think about. Here we go. Bringing listeners together in a dedicated space offers numerous advantages for you and for your community. The first one is to foster connections. We foster connections through our meetup, where people are now working together, supporting each other, listening to each other's shows, giving feedback, giving support, providing their expertise to help others in the group. It's created this whole network of people based on our meetup, but also doing life together outside of the meetup, which is great. A dedicated community space allows listeners to connect with each other, and it also enhances the overall experience of being in a group community together. One thing we do on purpose for our meetup is we purposefully give everybody a voice in the meetup. I've gone to meetups where you sit passively in the audience with your mic on mute, and you just listen to somebody talk to you, and then that's it. Maybe a couple questions at the end of the meetup, and you're done. Very uninteractive, non-interactive. You're just a casual viewer, and you never speak. You can chat in the chat, but that's as far as it goes. We do it differently in our meetups. We encourage everyone to talk. There's some people who come who don't want to be on camera, so they're off camera, but they're still listening, and we encourage them to speak up and be a part of the conversation. We'll call them out. not to make it awkward for them, but to make it so they feel and know that they're seen, heard, and encouraged to participate. That's one of the things we really strive to do in our meetups. So if you come, be ready, because we're going to call on you, because we'd love to hear your voice. We'd love to meet you and hear about your plans and your podcast and all of that. So keep that in mind when you come to our meetups. We want to hear from you. So fostering connections is a great way to build up that community around your show. And here's some feedback from our meetup around what we do twice a week at this point in our meetups for the How to Podcast series. Here we go.
What can you say about one of the nicest guys in Dave Campbell? You have, from the very beginning, been a supportive coach and mentor to so many people. And this collection of new fledgling podcasters like myself who have not even figured out the title or the true content that we're going to be publicizing, right down to those who've been podcasting for years, all feel very strongly that this is such an important part of the process and in helping to support one another in this community. And I'm certain that that all comes from you. So 5 stars out of 5 for anyone who is wanting to help support others and learn from others so that we don't repeat the same mistakes, so that we get more out of the experience by podcasting, so that we're able to find our why and really be connected to one another. And it just goes to show that whether you're coming to the Tuesday or the Saturday groups that you've put up online, that all of these people are wanting to remain in this open forum to discuss podcasting in all of its glory. And that is an incredible salute to you, as you really set the tone for all of us. And I sincerely appreciate all that you have and continue doing for us. So again, meetup groups for you, 5 out of 5. I will be there until I possibly cannot. Thank you ever so much from the bottom of my heart.
So the second one here is around increased loyalty. That we need to create a safe and interactive space, which will then, again, lead to loyalty from our audience in what we're doing. When listeners feel part of a community, they're more likely to remain loyal to your podcast, because not only are you giving them great content, not only are you giving them companionship by being there in a predictable fashion, so they build you into their world and into their routine, you are also giving them the opportunity to meet other people who also appreciate and love what you do and your show. And it's like meeting somebody at a Comic-Con and they like the character or series that you like, and you feel an instant connection with them because you have a shared love and appreciation for something that brings you together. As a community member, when you meet somebody who also listens to the same show that you listen to, you start trading stories, you start trading insights, you laugh, you share all kinds of great things about the shows that you have in common. And anything that makes us feel more in common with each other is a good thing. So having a community built around your show where people self-identify, get into a feedback loop, and then start talking to each other will make them more and more loyal to your show over all of the white noise out there and all of the competitive voices trying to pull them away from your show. People feel loyal to you because you've given them the opportunity to not only have great content, but also make great connections. It's going to increase loyalty for you. Create safe and interactive spaces through your podcast, and you'll get loyalty back from your listeners. The next one is all around valuable insights. And having an interactive space for your podcast is going to provide you a wealth of information, way more than you're going to get in your analytics, in your listener retention times, into where people listen to your show. That's all just numbers and stats and analytics. That's very cold, and it's not very interactive to go look at a bunch of numbers and graphs. But when you can sit there and talk to the person who listened to your last episode and they give you instant feedback about why it helped them and how it changed them and what they got value from in your show, that's valuable information you can use to do the next episode. And it's going to fill your tank as well as a host of the show. The insights you're going to hear and experience by having community around your show is going to be a propellant for your show and make your show go further, faster, longer, because you're hearing the feedback directly from the people interacting with your show. So before we go to the next one, content inspiration, here's another clip from one of the people that come to our amazing meetups and their thoughts about what we do in community together at our meetup. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Bill Monty. I'm the host of the podcast Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older and Tales from South Florida. And I'd like to tell you about something that happened to me in 2024. You know, podcasting, well, that's just about the loneliest thing you can do in the world. You're out there, you're creating all of this content. Maybe you're telling special stories. Maybe you're sharing your experience. Maybe you're giving people advice that they need. But at the end of the day, you have no one to talk to about it. Your family, their eyes kind of glaze over as they smile at you. And, yeah, he's talking podcasting again. Your friends, well, they tolerate it for a few moments, but they really can't give you any advice about what you should or should not do because they're not podcasters. They're not living the life that you're living. So where do you go, my friends? Because you have all of these questions. What equipment should I use? Is my content any good? Is my show any good? Is my idea any good? I don't know where to start. I'd like to do a podcast, but I don't know where to start. I'm here to tell you where. It's a meetup group hosted by a man named Dave Campbell. Dave Campbell is a veteran podcaster. He's got 8 podcasts right now. The man's insane. 8 podcasts, over 2,000 episodes. Dude knows what he's talking about. And he had this incredible, insane, wonderful idea to find other podcasters and bring them together in a meeting to do nothing but talk and support and share information. That's it. Friendly people doing what friendly people do, helping out other friendly people. It's the most amazing thing and what we absolutely need in this world today. If you're a podcaster, if you don't know how to start a podcast, if you don't know what to do next with your podcast, if you're just looking for direction, if you're looking for support, friendly faces, if you're looking for a place where you can ask a question and not be afraid that someone's going to make fun of you, if you're looking for a place that has all of this and it's free, that's right, there's no charge, then I invite you to go to howtopodcast.ca. That's Dave Campbell's website. Scroll on down to the meetup group information, log in, sign up, and be at the next meeting on Saturday at 11 o'clock. That's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And that's in the morning, not at night, okay? So make a note of that. And it's the best thing you'll ever do if you're a podcaster. Because this is the best thing I did in 2024. Now I'm continuing it into 2025. I cannot implore you enough to take this next step if you are looking for help. Don't pay people $80, $100, $150, and you're going to feel intimidated there. Come to a group that is there not to sell you anything at all, but just to assist you on your journey. I hope you'll do it. Remember, that's howtopodcast.ca. Dave Campbell. Hey, listen to the How to Podcast series too. Dave's there talking all the time about podcasting, and it's wonderful to listen to because he's got a really nice, friendly voice too. I hope that I see you at our next meetup group. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And I'm looking forward to you meeting this group of my friends. All right. You've got your assignment. Now go do it. And I'll see you on Saturday.
So number 4 is all around content inspiration. Okay, you're getting valuable insights from your audience, but now you're getting content inspiration. Discussions within your community can also then spark ideas for future episodes. We talked about that in the feedback loop, but then you get a bunch of people together in one space, and you'll see the ideas just unfurl in front of you. It's amazing. So allow your audience to talk about things and share their ideas for your show. And again, you do not have if you do not ask. So in your community time together with your audience, ask them, what are we not covering on the show? How can we help you? And then let the community together bounce ideas off each other, which you should have a pen and paper or a way to keep track of these ideas, because they're going to come to you by doing these in real time with your community. Content inspiration is going to come through discussions and the interactions that happen together in one Zoom room or in person at a bar or whatever you're doing around your show. Allowing your community to talk to each other is going to give you some great ideas for your show. And then the last part, and I know everybody loves this word, is around monetization in community building. Well, the 2 questions I get the most: how do I grow my show, and how do I make money with my podcast? Again, I told you what I mean, my struggle with the idea of how do I grow my show, being open-ended and hard to nail down exactly what you mean by the word grow. Clarity is going to be key to helping you answer that question. But there are some monetization opportunities that can come through having a safe and interactive space. It's happened for me. Again, I pay, I think it is roughly, at the time of recording, about $50 a month to host the meetups that I do for the How to Podcast series. You have a roughly 175 to 200 people, somewhere around there in the group. Not everybody's active. We do try to pull people out of the group if they don't do anything in the group. They just sign up and then ghost us. We just start removing people. We wanted to have a more accurate number of how many people are involved. But we'll get 3 to 12 people show up to any given meetup, and we cut it off at 20 because it just gets a little unwieldy when you have too many people on the screen and nobody gets to talk then. We try to keep them low and do them more often so that more people can attend. But you do have an opportunity to make money with your community by having a safe and interactive space. An engaged community opens up possibilities for sponsorships, revenue streams, maybe a coaching program, maybe a boot camp or a short course. You've given and given and given through content. You've given and given and given through feedback. You've given and given and given by creating a community. And what happens, I find, is people then reach out to you and go, Dave, everything you've done for us has been amazing. It's free. Thank you. But now what does it take to work with you? Like, how much does it cost to actually do something with you in a more of a paid structure? I want to say thank you. I can either use your buy me a coffee, or if you have a course, I'd like to buy the course or a book or a program or a ebook, whatever. There's that law of reciprocity where people want to give back when they've been given so much for free. They just want to do something kind to honor you as the host of not only the podcast, but the community. Having a safe and interactive space does open the door for potential monetization opportunities, which again, some people are looking for. Some people don't really care to do that, but it does open the door. So keep that in mind. Overall, as we talk about building community around your show, by prioritizing community and building up a group of people who self-identify in feedback loops in a safe and interactive space, by implementing these feedback loops and creating the safe space for interaction, you're not just producing a podcast. You're cultivating a loyal and engaged audience that will support your show's growth and success for a long time to come. And when I have that question again, how do I grow my show? Well, do you have a way for your audience to self-identify? Do you have a feedback loop? Do you have a safe and interactive space for your podcast? Any one of these or all three combined together become an amazing way for you to grow your show. It's not going to necessarily grow the number of people listening to your show, but it's going to grow the depth of connection and loyalty and bringing you into their routine that will make them to be one of the most valuable listeners for your show. Do you want 100 people who listen to your show that you never hear from? Or do you want 10 people who listen to your show that are in constant communication, supporting, loving you, buying you coffees, sending you SpeakPipe messages, being in your Zoom communities, getting in your calendar for one-on-one chats? What brings you more value? Some people are just looking for a big audience so they can get commercials in their podcast and make money. Fine. If that's what you want, that's, again, we talked about it at the beginning. There are no rules in podcasting. So if that's your goal, then that's your goal, and you need to do that and do it well. But for those who are not on that path, like myself, I'm not a commercial guy. I'm not looking for ads in my podcast. I'm looking for more engagement with you. And that's why you don't hear ads in my show. I would much rather have more time with you and not give up our precious time together to try to sell you a mattress. I'm here to build a relationship with you. I'm here to help you in your podcast journey. I want you to be a success in the goal that you've set for yourself to be a podcaster. And however I can help you, either you and I one-on-one, either you and I remotely through emails or voice messages, or you and I in community through our meetups, I would love to be there as a resource for you and bring along the wisdom and knowledge of many of my podcasting friends that you hear on this show, to bring them into your world as well as a community support. I think the best podcasts about podcasting are community-based, not a single voice with 25 years of experience and a book and speak on stage. That's fine. I would much rather have a bunch of people, students, learning in real time, sharing their ups and downs and all of their struggles and successes in community with many voices for you to pick and choose from that you will resonate with. Some you will, some you won't. But I would much rather do podcasting in community than to have a single solitary voice telling you that there are rules in podcasting when there are none. I want you to hear from the group. I think you're going to learn better from a group. There's wisdom in the counsel of many, and I want you to hear the wisdom of all these great co-hosts. I want you to hear the wisdom of the people in our meetup groups. I want you to hear the wisdom of people who leave great answers to the question of the month that we do on the podcast. I want you to hear the wisdom that abounds all around you and realize you, as a new podcaster or a struggling podcaster, are not alone in this. And there are great people who would love to support you, but they need to meet you. And we need to know who you are. So if you're interested, howtopodcast.ca, everything is there for you. I would love for you to come and be a part of this. And if you have questions about this or anything we talk about on the show, again, there's a calendar link there on the website. There's a link in the show notes where you and I can get together. And there's the meetups, which again are completely free. Sign up, come be a part of the conversation, come to give, don't just come to get. We'd love to have you be a part of the community. Thanks for listening. And my challenge for you in 2025, find a way for you to have your listeners self-identify, then create a feedback loop so that you can then have conversations, and then somehow, some way, create a safe and interactive space for your audience, whether you have 2 listeners or 200. Create a way for them to meet each other, not just talk to you one-on-one. If you need any help, let me know. I'd love to be there for you. Thanks for listening to the show. Happy February. Happy podcasting. Can't wait to hear your journey as a podcaster. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm David Beckmeyer out here in California, USA. I'm the host of Outrage Overload, a science podcast where we explore the roots of outrage and offer strategies to stay calm in a polarized world. Regarding the weekly meetups, I've been attending these for some time now. And, I've made an observation and it's, taken time to see this and see how this works. But, and in informing this observation, I do want to say that, I have quite a bit of experience with, building teams, running big teams. I've had hundreds of people working for me and built companies, all this stuff. So I only say that to say that maybe this observation carries some weight. But one observation I've found here is Dave is kind of masterful at how he helps us. And he also, that carries then forward to a lot of the rest of us pick up on that and some sort of follow through with some of that same practice. But, he's never particularly direct. I mean, I guess if somebody had some certain kinds of situations, he might be, but for the most part, what he does is learn about what folks are doing. And he really puts time into, checking out their shows and what work they're doing and learning about those people. And then, us, the group, and the folks in the group. And then, what he'll do is he'll incorporate some of the things that maybe he sees something in a show that, oh, this person is doing that. And maybe that's not the best idea. And instead of, jumping down that person's throat or really telling them that they're making this big mistake, he'll incorporate into one of his episodes, maybe later, something about that aspect of things. And then we learn along the way that, yeah, that's an interesting thing that I'm probably doing that maybe I shouldn't be doing anymore. And I think he provides help like that in a very subtle way, and it moves everyone forward. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much for listening to the entirety of the episode, including this part. You know what? A lot of people leave right now, so we'll let them leave. Give them a second to go. Okay, now it's just you and me. We have our meetups that we do for the How to Podcast series. We do them during the week, and we also do them on Saturdays. So twice a week, you have the opportunity to meet other podcasters, just like you. Some people have just started. Some people haven't even released an episode yet. Some have been doing it forever. And we get together and talk podcasting. We want to help you in community to continue with your show, to start your show, to grow your show. So come and meet listeners of this show in one space on meetup.com. Again, through howtopodcast.ca, you'll see the links. It's completely free to join. Come whenever you have an opportunity to come. There's no commitment. You don't have to sign any waivers. You can just come join us. Come join the conversation. We'd love to have you there because the only thing that's going to make these meetups better is you being there. So I'm hoping you will say yes. And you'll say, Dave, I'm tired of podcasting by myself. I wish there were people I could connect with that are fellow podcasters and share my frustrations with guests who ghost me and my editing software is crapping out on me and I'm just having this hard time. I'm just having a hard time coming up with podcasts, episodes and titles and all the things and social media. Wouldn't it be great to get in a room with other podcasters and share best practices and learn? 3 of our 4 Saturdays every month are themed. So you have a topic, but that last Saturday of every month is open question and answer. Ask anything. Come meet a podcaster. Come enjoy the podcasting community through howtopodcast.ca. Come to our meetups. Can't wait to see you there.